On December 10th of 2019, the Norwegian Nobel Committee for Peace awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia for making peace with neighboring Eritrea and putting an end to one of Africa's longest-running conflicts. However, in an unprecedented move, on January 13th of 2022, the Nobel Prize Committee issued a very rare admonition of the Peace Prize laureate for his role in the worst humanitarian crisis in recent decades. Since just 2020, Abiy declared war on the Tigray region and the Amhara region. We will come back to these. He has also openly threatened Eritrea and other neighboring countries of invasion, and signed port rental agreement with Somaliland, unrecognized breakaway region, escalating tensions with Somalia. And recently, he is being accused of actively scheming to create a breakaway country composed of majority of Ethiopia and the Afar region of Eritrea, which will secure him access to sea. By doing this, he has single-handedly created a very volatile situation which can result in the worst regional war Africa has ever seen. Although the Nobel Committee has made it clear that they do not revoke awards, some efforts to remove Abiy from this prestigious list are still ongoing. Let's explore what Abiy has done since becoming a Peace Prize laureate, and you can decide if he deserves to stay in the list that includes Mandela and Mother Teresa. Donald Trump thinks he shouldn't have been awarded in the first place.
Doesn't mean a thing. I mean, I'm going to tell you about the Nobel Peace Prize. I'll tell you about that. I made a deal. I saved a country. And I just heard that the head of that country is now getting the Nobel Peace Prize for saving the country. I said, did I have something to do with it? Yeah, but that's the way it is. As long as we know, that's all that matters, okay? That's all that matters.
Abiy came to power in April of 2018 after the sudden resignation of Haile Mariam Desalegn, who was the Prime Minister of Ethiopia for 6 years. Haile Mariam stepped down following mass protests from the youth and an elite split within the government. The alleged murder of a famous singer from the Oromo region was the tipping point to the frustration of the Oromos, which are the largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. Hundreds of people were killed during the protests. Although to Haile Mariam's credit, this was the only peaceful transfer of power in Ethiopian history. Soon after Abiy came to power, he started making positive reforms, such as releasing journalists and political prisoners. He even invited exiled opposition leaders to return and participate in the reforms. Here is a clip from Abiy's interview at the World Economic Forum in 2019.
He lifted state of emergency. That was one of the questions of the public. And released thousands of prisoners, including journalists. Today, we don't have a single journalist in prison, and we are proud of that. Anyways, not only this, we also invite all opposition parties. We're based abroad. Not only opposition party, but also waged armed struggle against the government. They all are back now. We don't have any opposition party abroad. We're discussing how to change the political landscape and how to make the upcoming election democratic, free, and a better one compared to the previous.
Most importantly, he extended a peace agreement to Eritrea, which was received positively by the Eritrean government. The Ethiopian people were very hopeful and ecstatic. More often, he would use terms such as "love defeats all" and "let's come together," to the point some saw him more as a prophet than a prime minister. However, not everyone was thrilled with Abiy's rhetoric. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, the group which dominated Ethiopian politics and resources for about 27 years before Abiy's rise to power, were particularly feeling threatened. For historical perspective, the Tigray People Liberation Front, along with the Eritreans fighting for independence, overthrew the communist government which was ruling Ethiopia in 1991. Following this, they formed a ruling coalition by including parties from the Amhara and Oromo ethnic groups, which was called the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, or EPRDF. But make no mistake, the TPLF dominated the EPRDF coalition. When Abiy became prime minister, he excluded the TPLF and combined the remaining factions of the EPRDF coalition to form a new coalition known as the Prosperity Party. The TPLF did not receive this well. Moreover, he started defaming the TPLF with nicknames such as daytime hyenas, which only served to worsen people's animosity towards them and the Tigray people. Although there always was competition for power among the different ethnic groups, the tensions festered after the EPRDF, under the leadership of the late Meles Zenawi, enacted ethnic federalism. Under this form of federalism, each region represented an ethnic group called a nation, and each nation has the right for self-determination, including the right to secession. Although the intention was to protect the minority ethnicities from being dominated by the majorities, which has been historically the case, it ended up creating a disconnected population that only thought about their ethnicity and their region. In Ethiopia, there are border and land conflicts among the different regions, which is unheard of anywhere else in the world. The particular disdain towards the TPLF and Tigrayans in general mainly developed during the time the TPLF were in power. This is despite Ethiopia having seen its best economic growth. Tigrayans represented only around 6% of the Ethiopian population, and the Amhara, which were the ruling ethnic group for more than a century, and the Oromos, could not accept the fact a minority group held majority of the power. In 2019, the hatred reached to the point that Tigrayan civilians living in other regions were being victims of hate crimes. Tigrayan civilians and university students were being murdered in gruesome ways. In 2020, the relationship between Abiy and TPLF hit a new low after he delayed national elections citing COVID concerns. The TPLF, who were confined to ruling the Tigray region, just ignored the federal mandate and carried out election on the initially planned date. Finally, on November 4th of 2020, fighting broke out between the federal government and TPLF. At first, Abiy claimed it was a quick skirmish aimed at arresting the TPLF leaders. However, what followed was a disaster of epic proportions. The fighting grew into a regional war, lasting for 2 years, claimed the lives of about 600,000 Tigrayan civilians and the displacement of millions. Disturbing videos and reports of atrocious war crimes, including mass murders and sexual abuses, started coming out. The World Health Organization described the situation in Tigray as hell on earth. One of the reasons for the war going out of control was Abiy's invitation of Amhara militias known as Fano, and the Eritrean government, which considered TPLF as its archenemy for 20 years, to participate in the war. Both groups, driven by their desire to enact revenge on the TPLF, responded over-enthusiastically. He also used Turkey and United Arab Emirates supplied drone strikes to terrorize the region. The other Ethiopian ethnic groups, so blinded by their hate, supported the war. Some religious leaders even went as far as blessing the war. This has created deep resentment and worsened the ethnic divide. The war came to an end on November 2nd of 2022, with the TPLF essentially surrendering. They agreed to disarm and step down as ruling party of Tigray. Abiy won the Tigray War. However, the peace treaty he signed with TPLF was frowned upon and created friction with the Amhara militias and Eritrean government, as they had intended to get rid of TPLF once and for all. Soon after the Tigray War, Abiy set his sights on the Amhara militias, fearing their growing power could challenge him. He ordered them to disarm or integrate with the federal forces. The Amhara militias refused, citing fears or TPLF retaliation and growing tensions with the Oromo. As a result, another civil war broke out in the Amhara region. The fighting is still going on, with many reports of mass murders and sexual crimes being committed by the federal forces. In an effort to divert attention from the Amhara civil war and revive his tanking popularity, Abiy brought up a typically unifying topic among Ethiopians, which is Ethiopia's lack of access to sea, as matter that requires urgent attention. Ethiopia had gained access to sea when Emperor Haile Selassie annexed Eritrea in 1950s, and it lost access when the Eritreans declared independence in 1991. Abiy argues that a country with 120 million people cannot remain landlocked. It's a matter of national security and must gain access to its own ports by any means necessary. He went as far as threatening to invade Eritrea, which was the reason for his Nobel Prize and his prime ally in the Tigray War. This has put the Horn of Africa on high alert. In a move that caught everyone by surprise, Abiy signed a treaty with Somaliland, Somalia's breakaway region, to lease a 20-kilometer coastline for 50 years, which can be used for military and commercial activities. In return, Ethiopia is to recognize Somaliland as an independent country. Although Somaliland has been operating as an independent nation for decades, it is still considered as part of Somalia and does not have international recognition. Somalia accused this treaty as a violation of its sovereignty and recalled its ambassador to Ethiopia. As a result, tensions between Ethiopia, Somalia, and Somaliland are now the highest they have been in decades. This has concerned the United Nations, US, and all countries in the region. Although there are rumors that Ethiopia will drop the Somaliland deal amid pressure from international community, this showed the world how reckless Abiy can be and how far he can go to stay in power. This is yet to materialize, but some elites are accusing Abiy, which is from the Oromo ethnic group, of actively conspiring to create a new Oromo-centric nation by curving out the fertile lands of Ethiopia and the Afar region of Eritrea. Abiy aims to achieve this by inciting conflicts among the Tigrayans, Amhara, and Eritreans, as he did in Tigray War, hence making them weaken each other. In conclusion, since coming to power, he has started 2 major wars and stirred the stability of the Horn of Africa. Many believe that Ethiopia is doomed to disintegrate like Yugoslavia, as the ethnic divisions have become beyond repair due to Abiy's decisions. Now you can be the judge on whether he deserves to be a Nobel Peace Prize laureate.
Enigma Videos.